Okay. I don't want that. I don't want that.
Put those 19,000.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I knew they had.
I think we better
Oh, they went, okay.
Yeah, I think I do too. Yeah, we don't want. Well, I don't want anybody.
Halloween. But see, you got to get kicked at. So they're
David's got to leave at 7:20. Which David? David Griffin. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So, where is Larry? I don't see him. He's not in here, is he? Well, he must use the restroom. I don't see the number of people I was thinking I was going to see. I'm surprised. I don't see the number of people. Going to be a soccer field or? Well, I don't know. Fair? Was it this fair day for Sunnyvale? No, that was last week. Oh, okay. It's a fair day for Mesquite, but that shouldn't affect us. Well, it was for Mesquite, but that's not. Okay, good evening. I welcome you to this regularly scheduled town council meeting of the town of Sunnyvale. Today is October the 8th, 2018. It's a 7:18. We're sorry we're just a little bit late tonight, but our executive session ran a little bit long. I want to call on David Griffin, a Sunnyvale resident, pastor of Community Life Church here in the Sunnyvale and other locations in the region, to voice our invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father God, thank you so very much for the opportunity to stand in a free country and to proclaim our faith and to speak freely about our opinions. We thank you most of all for the opportunity to gather and to connect with other people. We thank you for our community. I thank you for our leaders and for the fact that you have appointed them and put them here for such a time as this. I pray that they would take that responsibility very, very seriously. I pray that our residents would work together well, regardless of race, creed, or even economic status. And Father, I do pray that you would continue to work in our community. I thank you for the chance to live here in Sunnyvale. I thank you for all of the work that has been done by those that have gone before us. I thank you for the friendships that I have been able to establish and have been established amongst those in leadership. We thank you and we praise you, and we thank you most of all for the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ, and it is in his name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, David. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you for being here tonight as we go about the business of our town. Please note that our mayor, Saji George, is not here tonight. He is traveling on business, so we'll conduct a meeting in his absence. This is a time in the meeting when we call the public forum, which is a time for you, our citizens, and others in the audience to address the council. Feel free to do that at this time. Please remember that we cannot discuss anything that you might bring forth tonight. We need to put it on our agenda. Also, we don't deal with personnel or legal matters at this time. And finally, as you finish tonight, we ask you to take one of the yellow cards that's on the podium and give us the information called for so that we can have appropriate record of your comments. So at this time, anybody that would like to speak, please come forward. I will add that if you're here for a public hearing, we have 6 of those, I believe, tonight. They'll be later in the meeting, and we'll certainly recognize you at that time to comment on those items of a public hearing. And seeing nobody come forward, thank you for still being here. We look forward to your participation at some point during the meeting. And if not, just let us know that what you're here for at some point. We've got 6 items on our consent agenda tonight. Council, let me read those to you as required. First, discuss and consider Resolution 18-15 of the Town Council of the Town of Sunnyvale, designating the Mesquite News as the official newspaper for the town for publication of legal advertisements and notices and declaring an effective date. Number 2, discuss and consider first reading of Ordinance 18-23, an ordinance of the Town of Sunnyvale, Texas, reviewing the town's investment policy in accordance with the Texas Public Funds Investment Act. Number 3, consider Resolution 18-17 of the Town Council of the Town of Sunnyvale, authorizing signatures for checks and investments authorized by 2.2 of the town's investment policy. 4, discuss and consider canceling the regular town council meetings scheduled for November 26, 2018 and December 24, 2018. 5, discuss and consider Resolution 18-18, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Sunnyvale approving the entering into of a service contract with Dallas County on behalf of the Dallas County Sheriff for police patrol services. Number 6, discuss and consider the purchase of an additional vehicle for the Public Works Department. Does anybody have anything they want removed from the consent agenda? If not, could I have a motion to approve the items so stated on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Egan, a second by Councilmember Clark, to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6 as presented. Does everybody understand the motion? Have any questions on the motion? Not all of those in favor, so signify. Those opposed by the same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Councilmember, or Mayor George is not here now. This moves us into the public hearings that we have scheduled for tonight. Our first one is applicant Colin Helfridge at or about 154.3 acres east of North Collins Road and south of Town East Boulevard. It's an amended concept plan for Stony Creek Track 3, Phase 3B and 3C, an amendment to Ordinance 463, the Stony Creek PD, PRO 463, specifically Phase 3B of the Stony Creek Concept Plan. Any questions from the council? Not, I turn it over to Rashad.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, providing a little background. As you noted, this is a proposed amendment to the original concept plan for Stony Creek Track 3. The proposed plan notes some minor amendments in regards to reconfiguration of the roadway and some landscape changes with regard to the open space and trail system. All the lots within the phase will be 1 acre, which is still in adherence to with the ordinance number 463, Stony Creek PRO, with a total of 154 acres within that phase. The Track 3 requirements stipulate that 21 acres of open space shall be provided. Applicant is providing that open space. A nature trail was required along Duck Creek, and this is somewhat tied in with the future agenda item, Track 4. The nature trail spans from all the way from Town East all the way along Duck Creek, moving south. There was some discussion with the developer in regards to the constraints from the waters of U.S., the wetland areas, the floodplain, in regards to constructing this trail. The landscape plan shows, and it's up on the screen now, that a portion of this trail will now be an 8-foot trail as opposed to a 4-foot trail. It won't be constructed out of a natural state type of material. In order for long-term maintenance, it'll be constructed out of concrete, and those areas shown in green will be a wood type material placed, wood plank type system placed above the wetland areas. Those areas in green are the wetland areas that can't be disturbed or changed. So that is the way the developer has addressed that requirement, and it meets the intent of the ordinance. I will note at the north, very north, the ordinance states that a nature center was to be constructed in that area, phase Track 3, north of phase 3C. Staff has not found any specific details on how this was going to be developed. It did state, though, that the developer shall contribute $45,000 for the construction of a concrete parking lot for this nature center. And right now, the developer has provided a kind of a trailhead with a loop natural trail in that area if and when something happens. Gazebos along with the trail were required for Track 3. Some of this stuff has already been in place with the development of Phase 3A. The developer is just finishing up and has added an additional gazebo along the lake area, around the lake area. With Phase 3B and 3C, there will be a total of 43 lots added, and upon completion of Track 3, there will be a total of 68 lots. Max allowed per the Stony Creek PRO is 75 lots, so it will be a decrease in the number of lots allowed. With this noted, staff recommends approval. The applicant will be subject to traffic mitigation fees as required by the ordinance of $1,100 per lot, and the developer shall also contribute the sum of $45,000, which they are aware that they will be required to do so. Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of this phase of this amendment, but I will note something I kind of missed here. The property owner at 330 North Collins, they received a letter from town staff, previous town staff, with regard to a buffer requirement along the southern, around their property. This has been done on the southern portion of their property, but the future phase of Phase 3C it hasn't been addressed as of yet. The developer has reached out to them, and I believe they're in the discussion. He can speak in more detail in regards to that. I couldn't find anything specifically requiring this buffer area around their property. The letter that previous staff drafted to abutting property owners with regard to this maintenance of the buffer area states that it was a requirement of the Stony Creek development. I only see that it was added when the plat was finalized. So I'm thinking it's probably something that was just, there was a concern and it was addressed when the plat was done. I would ask that the same be done on the northern half of this property to make it uniform.
Okay, any questions for Rashad? If not, I know our applicant is in the audience tonight, Mr. Helfrich, or someone. We please have your name and address for the record, and also don't forget to fill out one of our little yellow cards.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Wade. Thank you, Council, for hearing us this evening. My name is Craig Campbell with Starwood Land Associates. We are the landowner of phases 3 and 4 that we'll be speaking to tonight. And my address is 385 Inverness Parkway, Inglewood, Colorado, 80112. As Colin had spoke, I'm not sure, oh, there it is, yeah, thank you. We are bringing to you this evening both phases 3 and phase 4. Our presentation here kind of covers it together. Phase 3A is 25 lots that has been developed and fully built out, and we are bringing forward the balance of that phase, which is 3B, 3C. As Rashad had mentioned, the Pro maxes the units in those phase 3 altogether at 75. The 25 have been built. We're adding 43 more, so we're coming in at 68 total units as compared to the zoning maximum of 75, so we're underneath that zone. Just kind of a little chart here that walks through the PD requirements and how we're meeting those. Again, we're not asking for any variances on anything. We're complying with all of the requirements under the Pro Ordinance 463. The unit count, as you can see, is under, our density is under the maximum required. We are previously provided the 21 acres of open space and the 16.4 that needed to be improved. That's all been already taken care of, and we're actually going to be adding more open space acreage to that number. Development contribution of $45,000, we're well prepared and we'll be making that. The gazebos that are required, again, we're adding an additional one near the existing lake and dock area, and we will be adding a couple more into the new phase 3C to the north. And the hikes and bikes trails, as were mentioned and noted earlier, we're also providing those. Per this phase 3, we have to provide the 2.81 acre site to the town. That's over on the southwest corner of Town East and Collins Road. We're prepared at any time to make that. It's noted when the town requires that, we'll make that dedication. So we're ready for that. And as noted, there's the resident that's kind of in the middle, surrounded by phase 3A and then phase 3B to the north of their property. We've had a good conversation together, and we're going to work with the town staff on language that will work for him regarding the landscape buffer that he's going to require. We actually want to take it a step further. As Rashad had mentioned, we didn't find anything in the ordinance. There's nothing recorded against the properties individually that shows that buffer needs to be there. So we had spoken to Mr. Shelby and said we're going to work to make sure, at least on the northern piece that we can control, that we will have language that will transfer with title of the property. So when a home is resold, that shows on that title work that there's going to be a buffer there for maintenance of the trees that currently exist, and they need to maintain those and keep those. So we'll, again, work with staff on the proper language and with Mr. Shelby to make sure we're meeting that intent and something that works for him. Again, the final item on the ordinance for phase 3 is an amenity center with a parking lot and pool that was previously constructed, and we're actually right now renovating that facility and bringing it more up to speed and more of a current standard, and just a nicer facility for the residents to have and utilize. So, take any questions?
The 2.81 acre site dedicated to the town, southwest corner of Town East and Collins.
Correct.
That's what we refer to as the triangle.
Yes.
That's that green spot that you have there across Collins.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, questions for the applicant, council?
Good evening, Mr. Campbell. Thank you for being here. A couple of questions for you regarding these lots. I think over the past few weeks, with all the rain, we've had some flooding that's occurred down in this area, and so I'm curious as to what your mitigation plan is. How are you going to address with these lots coming in and the grade that comes off of those lots back down to that creek? how are you going to address the grade? How are you going to address, what's your overall plan to address how you're going to have to build up lots, I assume, and that, especially on that 3C side, you're going to have to do quite a bit of grading. So can you talk to us a little bit about your plan to make those lots usable?
Certainly,
And
yeah.
how you're going to address the water flow from those lots down into wherever you're sending it?
Great question, Councilmember Finch. First of all, I did neglect to say for Mr. Shelby's parcel as well, he does drain onto our parcel into 3C, and we are designing to continue to take that drainage forward. We're not going to change anything of that from his property. We will manage it in a more proper fashion onto our property. We will be submitting a CLOMAR, a conditional letter of map, towards FEMA. We did submit the flood study today to the city for your town engineer to review and proceed forward with that submittal to FEMA to go ahead and raise a portion of that property out of the floodplain. And part of what has to happen there with Collins Road and the elevation of Collins Road, we need to raise the site up to bring that interchange of Stony Creek Boulevard coming into Collins Road at a more appropriate elevation, and that means we're raising the portion of that site. The drainage components, again, that we submitted with our study, still have the drainage that falls obviously flowing down into Duck Creek, and we're integrating all of that proper drainage, complying with the town's no lot-to-lot drainage, using some of the wetlands that currently exist, using nature that's there to help drainage continue the way it should. So we'll have full design. We've already begun all that with a master drainage study to ensure that those lots and that section of the property are draining properly.
So thank you, and in the 3C side, it looks like on those back lots, you're going to have a pretty good retaining wall back there to support those lots. Is that what you're seeing on your preliminary stuff?
Our preliminary grading plan, there are some walls in some areas, but those are acre lots, so we are able to take that rear of that lot and use some of that extra land there and have that slope appropriately to not have to use a lot of retaining walls.
Okay. One other question, not related to draining, but on your path or your trail plan, I noticed that one of the trails going up Stony Creek, and if you go back to one of the slides we showed, there's a red trail that goes along Stony Creek. This one works. Along Stony Creek. If you look right here, this takes it up that major road right here. So is there going to be sidewalk here, or what do you plan on doing with that? Because now we're sending people into the street there. So I'm a little concerned that we have a major trail and we're sending people into a street. So can you talk to me a little bit about what your plan is there?
Right, so if you notice, there's currently, a trail that goes along Stony Creek Boulevard to the south there, and our intent is just to continue that and have access up into the master trail system into the Duck Creek area. So there'll be the borrow ditch along the road is the way the drainage plan works on those larger lots along Stony Creek, and the sidewalk trail will be detached from the roadway.
So you do plan on putting a sidewalked trail
Correct,
in?
right,
Okay.
right, yep.
Thank you.
So as you build up the lots in 3C as it gets close to Collins, are those lots gonna be higher than the Collins roadway?
No, we're just, in a sense, the ones that are right on Collins are somewhat at grade, but as it slopes pretty aggressively down there towards the drainage, we will be bringing that area up to par.
Even
Yeah,
with that.
kind of even with it, correct.
So it's really only the backside of 3C that you're gonna build up so much?
There's a bit of a hole in the middle there that we're going to be filling to kind of make it all, more level and drain a bit down towards the drainage area as it does. There's just some aggressive topography that we'll be kind of smoothing out, if that's the best way to place
One
it.
of your pieces of submission looked like there was a potential retail site in the southeast corner of Collins and Town East. Is that part of your property, or is
No,
that
that's from I believe from the prior documentation from the town that we had, and that's not a part of our parcel.
not a part of your property?
That's correct.
The previous concept plan showed that notation, potential retail site, but there was no details on what it would be.
Okay, other comments from the from the council to the applicant?
I have a couple, sir. Thank you again for coming tonight. A couple questions in the comments regarding the trails. It looks like there's going to be a natural 4-foot wide path. That's in the comments, Rashad. I think that's number 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is why are we doing 4 foot instead of 6 or 8 foot? How did we come up with 4 foot?
The original concept plan called for a 4-foot trail all the way along Duck Creek. The developer has changed that to an 8-foot trail, but a portion of that 4-foot that was the original plan, they've put at the very northern portion of the development. But overall, the trail system is going to be 8 feet wide. The only 4-foot portion of the trail that's going to be natural is the little brown circle at the top there.
Where that, if I can add on to what Rashad was speaking to. So, yeah, we're taking the 8-foot concrete trail with a few sections of the boardwalk because of the wetlands area. The trail all along our northern boundary here will be 8-foot concrete. Again, with where it's green, we'll have some sensitive areas with the wetlands. That'll be a boardwalk area. The 4-foot natural trail we have is we're kind of saying we'll put it over in this area and assist with the nature center. Even though we're giving the $45,000 to help in that area, we're also saying we can, would be willing to build a little 4-foot trail around this area as well, meeting the intent of the PD.
What does natural mean?
We take that to be like a soft trail, kind of a crusher fine trail, not a hard concrete, kind of more inducive to the area, the nature of the area that it's around.
I think one of my concerns when we do PDs is natural means natural today, and natural is something different unless it's defined. It'll show up one day and nobody will know what that meant until we ask, well, why did we do that? And it says natural. So I'm absolutely in favor of defining what natural is.
Certainly,
As we get into these all-encompassing PDs, it's fine as long as we define what that means. So I'd like to see some definition of what natural means.
Yeah, we'll certainly work with staff and define that to the town's needs.
With regards to the section that's going to be board walk, how did we come up with that? And what kind of board is that going to be? And then my next question is, 2 years from now, if you've built and gone, who's going to be responsible for maintaining that?
So, great questions. We are working with a landscape specialist that works in the area of wetlands and, building trails and, areas in wetland or near wetland areas that invite the public in. And so they have come up with a way to continue the trail along this whole corridor, because there are wetlands along this whole corridor that we need to be very sensitive to. So we can continue that trail, which is a part of this town master plan trail system. We're just building that for the town in that area. And the type of material, we're still working with the landscape architect on that. What we want to propose is what's going to be the most long-lasting so that the maintenance of that isn't excessive. They're looking into certain materials and doing some research on what has been upholding the best in other areas where they've done these trails, the boardwalk type of a trail. And so we'll come back with a proposal to staff as to what we think would be the best material to be the least maintenance. Now, it's my understanding that that trail, as I'd stated, is part of the town's master plan trail system. And correct if I'm wrong, Rashad, the town will maintain that going forward?
No, sir.
Is that part of the HOA?
That's part of the
Okay,
HOA.
so then, that'll default to our homeowners association that will then maintain that stretch of the trail.
I will say the town master plan called for, as we know, the trail system continue in the utility easement from the south all the way north through the gated portion of this development. It's kind of difficult to see that trail being constructed in the easement, number one, but also through a gated section that's going to be open to the public. It doesn't really make any sense. So the overall intent of the ordinance or the trail master plan is for the trail system to provide a way for people to make it north. This trail system will provide a way for people to make it north. Bypassing the actual gated section, you'll still be able to travel around the lake, the pond area that's existing there, and with this new tie-in, you'll be able to continue north all the way through Phase 3C, all the way to Town East. And once we make improvements to Town East will provide a way to get to Lake Ray Hubbard and to Beltline. So that is what staff has worked with the developer on with regard to meeting the intent. And I really don't see, unless we provide a way to purchase the utility easement, I'm not certain when or if that's going to be developed at this time.
Yeah, and I like the trail system and certainly support that. I'm just curious about how this boarded section, what it's going to look like. Is it going to be screwed in? I've got a little experience with decks, and they warp, the screws pop out, and now the HOA. By the way, who is in charge of the HOA right now?
We still have declarant control of the HOA.
Just want to be sure. So the developer is still oversight the HOA right now.
That's correct.
So the HOA will assume the responsibility for screwing down these boards, if it's a board, when they warp into the future, which, by the way, I think that's a huge hazard with having boards that warp. So I think that's what I'm driving at, is what is this going to look like, and how much of a burden is that going to be on the HOA to improve that?
And again, as I had stated, we're trying to work with a landscape architect that's had managed these types before, has built them before, and come up with, if it's a Trex type material or whatever that material might be, that will withstand those types of conditions that it's being built in. Obviously, it's in a wet area, and just, untreated wood would not be the best to go with, and, we wouldn't propose that. Because we do, we want it to be it's an amenity to both the community, it's an amenity to the town of Sunnyvale residents, and we want it to be something that's going to be enjoyable and not a hazardous area that, people are going to be struggling to walk across or ride a bike across. It needs to be something that can withstand it. But we do have to balance that with the wetland area that it's in.
So how much
There's
of
a balance.
that's going to be wood proposed?
If you can look at the map, there's, whoops, I'm sorry. The sections in green, that's where we have the issue of the wetlands. There's a section there and another section right around this portion of the property there. So as a percentage of the total portion, and that's only half of it. If we go over to here to phase 4, you can see the trail is still red all along this area. So it's a small portion of that whole extension, although any portion of it that's going to be in that wetlands area, we do want to make sure it's built correctly and to withstand time.
So you stated I'm sorry, were you finished? Okay. Mr. Campbell, you say you submitted a drainage plan to staff, today?
Yes.
And Rashad, I'm curious, have we seen that plan? Have we had a chance to review anything about that drainage plan?
I have not seen it. I'm not certain if our town engineer has had a chance to review it.
Okay.
It's about a 190-page narrative with a total of 500 pages with the exhibits, so I wouldn't imagine.
And just to be honest with you, I'm very concerned about that because of all the flooding. We've had a recent spate of, obviously, a lot of rain lately. I know you said you're from Inglewood, so it's been a lot here lately. And so we've had a lot of flooding, and so I'm very sensitive to, especially when we do this kind of development, this many lots, to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan and we understand how this water is going to flow in our town. And it's a concerning issue for us right now, just with your development, but with all developments that come into town, of how it impacts our residents, whether they can travel these roads or not. And so I'm definitely concerned about and am interested in what your and staff reviewing your drainage study and plan. And so that's my one hesitation about this is we haven't seen that, and I know it's probably not normal to completely review that beforehand, but it is something I'm very concerned about and would like us to really take a look at so we understand exactly what it says. I did notice here in this 3B you have this wetlands, this green, this longest, I think it's the longest green part there. And so are you reclaiming some floodplain in there, or wetlands? And if so, how are you gonna mitigate? Because I understand what you take, you have to give back, right? And so, are you, number one, and if you are, how are you gonna replace it?
So, make it an easy answer, we are not taking any wetlands. We are, certain points, we are crossing the wetland. As you can see the road from 3B into 4B there. That's what we call a crossing across the wetland. That is allowed with the Army Corps of Engineers to do crossings. And so we have that crossing there. We are not destroying any of the wetland, and that's partly why this concept plan is a little bit different than the previously approved plan, is because we went out and mapped extensively. We took probably about 3 months to go and map all of the wetlands in this area, the tree species, really understanding the floodplain, and that's what's driven this land plan. We didn't start with a land plan and try and maximize everything and see if it fit. We started with what were the constraints, and the constraints being, one of the key ones was the wetlands area and not having to do any mitigation against those. So we are not needing any special Army Corps permits to do work in the wetlands.
Okay, so just to clarify, the green part of the trail there, which is in, I guess, because of where it is in the wetlands, you're saying that that lot does not impede upon the wetlands. That lot that's right there by that green trail does not impede upon the wetlands.
Is there the back portion of that, Colin? There might be the
Yeah.
a back 10 feet or so of that lot. That's what I'm, just a small, pardon? Yeah, it'll be a drainage easement on the back of that lot that's in the wetland area.
So that, I guess the trail just barely gets in the wetlands then? I guess that's what I'm driving at is,
Correct. That's why it's in that green state, and we have to be sensitive as to how that's built.
okay. And you stated that you're going to create a crossing. Is that a bridge, or what is that? Help me visualize what that would look like as far as our road surface.
So it will be however the crossings would be determined. There's a couple of crossings that we do cross the wetlands, and some of them might be what's called a box culvert.
Okay.
You know, which the roads built up is just a concrete culvert underneath. I think that's to the most extent these crossings would be. There'd be no spanned bridge in any of these crossings.
Okay. Again, it goes back to my concern about those
The
things
drainage
clogging
and-
up and drainage and how it flows into our town,
Right.
and so that's.
Yep, those are great
Thank you for
questions.
indulging me. I appreciate that.
All good questions.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we're going to take a few minutes here and let the public address the council. They'll just hang tight for us.
Certainly. Thank you for your time.
This opens the public hearing on this application with regards to Stony Creek, Track 3, Phase 3B and 3C. If you'd like to make some comments, we invite you to do that now.
Hello. Leanne Williams, 321 Overdale Court, Sunnyvale. So I am president of the Homeowners Association at Homestead, and as some of you may know of late, we've had some challenges with different things concerning development. And so this is just my opinion on some of this stuff and concerns I have in general about development that goes on. I know in Homestead, there's what we call Phase 5A that is at basically Jobson and Town East. And all of it doesn't drain exactly ideally. And I know there are residents there who are pretty ticked about their backyards flooding just from what doesn't come off of what doesn't flow off correctly from the walking trails. So this really concerns me. Can you put up the page where it shows where the 100-year floodplain is on the plat? I looked online at the FEMA flood maps, and there's a good portion of 3C and B that look like they're in what's called a flood hazard zone. That's the 100-year floodplain. I happen to grow up in Garland around Duck Creek, and this is Duck Creek also. Can you find it? Okay. is it the dotted line going down kind of through the diagonally? Is that where it is? I can't see from here. No, going diagonally from the northwest down to the southeast.
Yes. As I say, the flood study was delivered by the developer late this afternoon. I was just confirming that. I was out in the field this afternoon, so I haven't had an opportunity to look at it as of this time, but I'm certainly going to be looking at it in the morning. I can't see that real clearly, to be quite honest, but it does appear that part of the property is in the 100-year floodplain of Duck Creek. Their study will need to show before it could be accepted by the town that whatever is removed from the 100-year floodplain of Duck Creek would have to be compensated for by excavation at another location within their property to sort of create a balance so that when the project is completed, the same amount of floodplain space is available as is today, therefore not creating any rises in 100-year floodplain.
Correct.
And as I say, we'll certainly be looking at that very closely to make sure that they have achieved that.
There is a process by which they can develop within the floodplain that he's speaking about.
Right, and I know there is a process, and, you know, I'm sure that the town of Garland thought they had all of that solved, but there was a massive flood along Glenbrook Drive in 2015, which,
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. I was
And
actually with the city of Garland when that occurred.
right, and it happened to be in the same designated kind of flood area of whatever an AE is, by designation by FEMA, as this land would be. And it just, in that, it's an effective flood hazard zone. FEMA says that has currently, without it being amended with soil and whatnot, it has a 26% chance of flooding over the life of a 30-year mortgage. And also that a 100-year floodplain has a 63% chance of one or more floods occurring in any 100-year period. So just because it's a 100-year floodplain doesn't mean it doesn't ever flood. As a citizen, I feel like the town sort of has a fiduciary duty to people who already live here and for people who are going to move here to try to make sure as much as possible that you're not going to flood 20 or 30 years from now. I know you know that, but it's frustrating as a homeowner and as an HOA board member to have to deal with issues like that. In terms of that nature trail that's natural, I'm assuming the HOA is going to have to maintain that, which, again, because there's no definition of what it is and what does that mean and how often is that going to flood out and have to be fixed. One thing that I think I would like to see happen moving forward is when people come up with plans like this and all the trails and whatnot, somebody also needs to come up with an estimate of what is that long-term maintenance, what does the annual maintenance look like? I believe this is like 1.5 miles of new trail that's going to get built, and looks like most of it is in wetland. And I don't even know if it's maintainable with all of the issues that it could possibly have, but maybe it is. And then I think I had one more question about is the parking lot actually going to be built now?
We don't even know where the center is going to be located, so I can really speak to.
Yeah, so, you know, just Homestead, little things didn't happen because, again, there was no definition of exactly what's supposed to be done. Hope we're all not going to blow away here in a second. I'd have concerns about what this who's going to maintain the parking lot, who's going to maintain all those natural areas, and what does that look like financially for the people of Stony Creek? So,
I think, Rashad, you might agree that the nature center, they're contributing towards that nature center. Well, it may be yet undefined. I know that 4B has talked about something similar to that. They could capitalize on that, but it will become a town property. It's not an HOA property. So the town will be responsible for it.
That's my understanding, it's going to be a town nature center. If that is, I know this was probably developed and proposed a long time ago. Ideas change, but in any case, the developer is responsible to contribute $45,000 to that.
You know, the town kind of backed ourselves into this, 45,000 in 2007, probably not the same dollar amount as it is in 2018. We're blocked into it by an ordinance that was passed legally and binding, but in the future, I think we need to, and you weren't here, and I wasn't here, and nobody up here, maybe one of us was here, but no one anticipated that being that long to develop it. So anyway, to your point, 45,000 probably is pennies.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams, for your comments. Please don't forget to fill out a card for us. Also, anybody else that would like to speak during the public hearing? If not, I will close the public hearing. Turn it back over to the council for questions for the applicant and/or Rashad.
Mayor, I just want to make a quick counsel for those who hadn't looked on their phone and looked at the radar. There's a pretty good front that's coming up from the south. We may get some harder wind than what we just heard, so I don't think it's going to be too bad, but the outflow is what we probably just heard of a bunch of rainfall. I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Councilman Egan. We got a pretty good shelter here. Okay, other comments with regards to this applicant?
So I do have another question, Mr. Campbell. If you could indulge me again, please, with this flood talk. I appreciate it. Obviously, it's high on my radar as far as what's going on. So the way I look at this map, just looking at the FEMA, this looks like the 100-year, what was referred to in the AE zone, this line right here. Is that correct? Is that what you're thinking as well?
I believe that's correct. I'm not able to
So my
see
question
that.
is simply, how are we going to keep these lots out of the floodplain? How do we ensure that, because now you're claiming some floodplain, right? If I'm wrong, please correct me, but we're reclaiming some floodplain, right? So I assume
That's
we're going to have
correct.
to build up and do some grading there. So where are we, if I understand correctly, we got to put it back somewhere. So how are you mitigating that with your plan?
So you're correct, Mr. Finch, that we are claiming some of this floodplain to make those lots buildable and be out of the floodplain area. Again, we're looking at a small snapshot of both phases 3 and 4. That's why we're bringing these forth together, because that whole concern is very important and what we paid attention to from the very beginning as opposed to wait until later. So as this area gets elevated, there's other areas over here where the dirt is going to come off of from phase 4 that's higher. And we pull back, the flood waters, as the town engineer had stated, we maintain basically the same size of channel that's there today as far as how much flood waters are required to flow through this channel. We don't just shrink the channel in this area, therefore reducing the amount of water that can flow through this area. We reduce it in one area and it kind of squeezes out in another area. And I can let my engineer speak a little more technical to this if you'd prefer, but that's what the 500-page flood study does. They go into great detail in mapping this whole area, this whole reach of Duck Creek and how that floodplain works and how our regrading of a portion of that, how that impact is, and then what that flow changes and where we recover that in other parts of this project. Your town engineer will review that study in detail, as that's the process, and then also from there, it gets sent to the federal government for their review, comments, and addresses of concerns and how that's all designed. So there's definitely a strong process in place to ensure that our flood study is done correctly, that our engineers are doing things correctly and calculations are done right, and it's, double and triple checked by different agencies along the way.
Okay.
I will speak to the prior public speaking there as to regards to Homestead. We don't drain at all to Homestead. We obviously drain towards into Duck Creek. So I'm not sure if that was a concern or not. I didn't quite understand that question, but we don't drain anything near their property, nor any others other than our own.
Other questions?
Yeah, and this is probably more for our town engineer, but I do have, again, concerns about when we talk box culverts and these kind of things where we impede flow. And again, I'm sorry you're having to indulge me on this because it is very near and dear to our hearts, my heart here, especially of recent, about all the water and flow. And I'm not saying I understand it all, I'm trying to. That's why I ask a lot of questions.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's,
thank you for
please do.
indulging me. And so, Lyle, do we have any concerns about this? How are we going to address this as far as these culverts, and do we see any risk with that, how that's being developed as far as flow?
As far as other locations within the town, again, I haven't had time to review the 500-page study yet. It may take me a couple of days. As they've stated, they drain to Duck Creek. Most of the other issues that have been brought up within the town are really not within the Duck Creek drainage basin.
Okay.
So, for example, floods along Tripp would not be impacted by this one way or the other because it's a separate drainage base. That having been said, I mean, the existing culverts that are in the Duck Creek drainage basin within the town of Sunnyvale would be included in the modeling that they have done. And of course, we would certainly look at that to see if there is any negative impacts created to them by this development.
Thank you, Lyle.
I have a question. Do you know, maybe for our engineer, have we had any flooding yet in the current 3A? Have we had any flooding that we know about? That's
No
been
flooding in
reported?
3A has been brought to my attention. I can certainly double check on that, but as I say, as of right now, I'm not aware of any in that particular phase.
I think it's far enough away that would be, yeah.
Yeah, I know we've had some street closures, maybe not as a direct result of that, but that Collins and Town East Drive, and that where we've had to close the street because of the water flow in
Just
that area.
last week?
Just
a week
right.
ago?
Couple of weeks
We
ago.
may have to
Couple
tonight.
weeks ago?
You never know.
So-
Well, again, those are issues related to the overall, the overall Duck Creek drainage basin, which, as y'all know, extends well beyond the town limits of Sunnyvale. And of course, this development is downstream from Collins and Town East. So, again, if their study has been done properly to verify that they are not creating any floodplain rises, there should be no negative impact to our existing culverts within the town.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? Not, this is an action item. If there's no further discussion, is there any kind of motion that we would need to make?
Obviously, I'm concerned about, just before we stay in motion, I'm concerned about this drainage. We haven't had a chance to review the drainage study they submitted. I'm not saying there's any problem with it, but I have real hesitation until we understand the drainage and how this is going to impact our town, especially since we can see that some of this resides in the 100-year floodplain. I'm concerned about that, and I wonder about staff's comment. How long would it take us to review this? Do we think we should review this before, knowing the impact it's going to have? So I'd ask staff to give us some comments on what they think.
How we should proceed?
Right, and I agree. This is a concern, I think, for all of us, just with all of our drainage issues. You know, we have a study that we should be getting back very soon, so maybe we look at that also and look at it holistically at the impact of this development along with the other drainage issues we have. But love to hear staff's thoughts.
We can definitely do that. Like Law said, we just received it this week. He can take a look at it. Depending on how quickly y'all would like this to be brought back, I'm certain that he could probably have a determination by the end of the week and a recommendation to me that I could just relay on. We could have this presented at the next council meeting.
I wonder, Mr. Campbell, I wonder if you would indulge us and give us some leeway. I'd love to hear your comments on this. I know you're in from out of town, but give us some grace on being able to look at this study before we actually approve this. Is that, it'd be easier if you agreed to this rather than us forcing it, so I would ask for your comments.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that very much, Councilmember Finch. Thank you for letting me speak to this point. I will state that the current concept plan is very similar to this. There is floodplain removal of that current concept plan. And again, we've studied this very, very closely and spent a lot of time on that. And that, at this point in time of a concept plan and a preliminary plat, it's very unusual that we even have a floodplain study submitted already. We're just, again, trying to be proactive and looking at these things aggressively. I do understand the town's concerns and the current issues that are happening, and to have some caution about this. But I would ask that, again, the current concept plan already is in the floodplain and had anticipated removal therefrom. And it's a standard process that happens all over the country as far as how these studies are done, the flood studies are done, and then you go again through the various agencies and third-party checks to make sure this is done correctly. The way the process works again too is the construction drawings will come in after the flood study has been reviewed and looked at, and those construction drawings then really start to look to the grading based on that floodplain study, where the roadways work, how sized these culverts need to be. So that process is all set up, and that's a process this town has, that other municipalities around the country have, to do them in those order. So again, I do respect and understand the concern of the flood concerns, but again, this development and other developments go through that same process. And the process, we adhere to very strictly, and we take the comments from the town engineer, we take the comments from the federal government on how these need to be designed, and we make those adjustments to make sure it's safe. Again, I want to build a community that's safe. We have our name, we're a master plan developer all over the country. And so we don't, we want to make sure that our plans and our communities are safe and that people can buy insurance for their home, get a mortgage that needs the insurance, that doesn't have to have flood issues with that, and we've never run into that problem. So again, it's summarizing, prefer we wouldn't have to delay until the study's reviewed, because again, that's just part of the whole process that proceeds forward, and the current site plan is, as approved by the town, is already in the floodplain.
Well, and I appreciate those comments, but I understand there is a process there, but even before this process, we still have a problem in our town with no, it's not you as a developer, but even with these processes, we still have problems, even with those things that happened. And so that's my concern. I do appreciate your comments, and anyway, council, that's my concern.
Yeah, I think I echo the same concerns. Additionally, if we were to approve this tonight, then we would not see this again. It would go to P&Z for final, and we wouldn't see it again, so we wouldn't be able to take a look at this and even determine if this met the entire town objective. Is that right?
Correct. Of course, staff and P&Z will have an opportunity, and staff will, like Mr. Campbell stated, staff has to review the flood study, FEMA has to review it prior to any construction. So much of that has to be approved prior to any development. But like you stated, the process, yes, as far as council review, your only take on this would be for the concept plan and the preliminary plat.
Which is both right now.
Yes.
Other comments? I need some kind of a motion. Motion to either approve or a motion to table. I don't think we're talking about denying.
Right. I would like to make a motion to table so we can look at this further. Again, discussing all the concerns that we have had and raised. We have a big drainage issue, and, you know, I think we need to look at it holistically, look at our drainage study, look at what they have, and just make sure, again, this won't become before us again, so I'd like to be involved. I think the council should be involved.
I have a
Or just
motion
ask
to
to-
table. Is there a motion to second?
I would
Second
ask
motion?
this to table to a specific date.
October 22nd. So have a motion on the floor to table till October the 22nd. Have a second?
Is that enough time, Lyle? Is that enough time to review? 22nd?
Yes, sir, that should be more than adequate time for me to get y'all a good answer on how I feel the study, whether it works or not.
Second motion.
Have a motion to table this action till October 22nd, made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Finch. Any further discussion of this motion? Not all those in favor of the motion is so stated, so signify. That's all of us. Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, Rashad, that pretty much means that we don't need to proceed with the preliminary plat.
Correct.
Ask for a table also.
Yes.
So based on the action in that agenda item, we should go ahead and table the preliminary plat. I would open it up to the applicant if he wants to make any statements regarding that. Okay. And do I need to open a public hearing? Do I need to open a public hearing? Okay.
Can do that.
Okay. With regards to this item, which is the applicant is Colin Helfrich, 154.3 acres east of North Collins Road and south of Town East Boulevard, requesting approval of a preliminary plat for Stony Creek Tract 3, Phase 3B and 3C. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this particular agenda item. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. If not, I'm going to continue the public hearing such that we will take this up as an agenda item on October the 22nd. And have a motion to continue and table this item.
I'd like to motion to table and continue the item on October the 22nd.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Clark to table this public hearing, table this agenda item, continue the public hearing until October 22nd. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as stated, so signify. That's all of us. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again on October 22nd, and I encourage you to stay in contact with our staff to see if we can resolve any open issues. Appreciate it. Now, we need to go to, next item on our agenda is also the applicant Colin Helfrich at or about 400 Nance Road, 168.4 acres northeast of Nance Road. Requested an amended concept plan for Stony Creek Tract 4, Phases 4B and 4C, an amendment to the ordinance 463, Stony Creek PD, PRO 463, specifically Phases 4B, 4C, and 4D of the Stony Creek concept plan. Mr. Jackson.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, as noted, this is a proposed concept plan amendment to Tract 4. Property is located north of Nance Road. Applicant requests approval of the amended concept plan for phases 4B and 4C. There's some minor amendments with regard to reconfiguration of the roadways within the development and a lower lot count as well, and density. The applicant will produce the Tract 4 stipulates a certain number of sizes shall be allowed within that tract. A max allowed for lots 13,000 square feet to 14,999. It's 177 lots can be allowed within Track 4. Lots within 15,000 square feet to 17,999, so there's a total of 37 lots that can be allowed. And those greater than 18,000 square foot are shown to be 21 lots. Upon completion of this proposed amendment, if allowed, there will be 101 lots that are 13,000 to 14,000 square feet, 82 lots that are 15,000 to 17,009, and 49 lots that are 18,000 square feet or larger. The roadway connection to Nance Road will be a emergency-only connection. This will consist of a gate to be reviewed and approved by the town with a Knox lockbox. It's reviewed by the fire department and Public Works. As I noted, street configurations were changed. Cul-de-sac lengths, the old concept plan had some fairly long cul-de-sacs. This one does have a cul-de-sac that was somewhat long in Phase 4C, but our ordinance do allow for cul-de-sacs to be somewhat longer if approved by town council and approved by town staff, or reviewed by town staff. Fire chief reviewed this and town engineer reviewed this, and there weren't any major comments with regard to that cul-de-sac in the southern portion of Phase 4C. The trails, as we noted previously in agenda item number 3, will be an 8-foot trail along Duck Creek, concrete material. There aren't any waters of the U.S. or wetlands areas of concern in this general area. So that trail will be 8 feet wide and concrete all the way throughout. The amended concept plan notes the total number of dwelling units proposed. Based on information provided, the following density will be what is developed. The maximum shall not exceed 1.43 per ordinance, 1.43 dwelling units per acre per ordinance 463. The amended concept plan proposes an overall density of 1.08 dwelling units when complete. Staff recommends approval. I will note the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval as well with staff comments. Staff notes that plan for the future use of Nance Road should be established by town council. I know there were some preliminary discussions with regard to the eastern portion of, the western portion of Nance Road with being developed by the school and the town in order to provide access to that. But this will actually provide emergency access to along Nance with the development of Phase 4B and 4C. So some discussion needs to be had with regard to that portion of the development and Track 5. That is shown in the ordinance as being a responsibility of the Track 5 developer. But as noted right now, the emergency access suffices based on staff's review. The fire department and Public Works has looked at that, and there are 2 points of access being provided to the development with the existing Rockshire Drive entry and the new proposed entry gate at Phase 3B and Phase 4B. With all that being said, staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Rashad. Any questions for staff?
I have one, Rashad, on page 4, the side setback at 15 foot. Is that part of the current ordinance or PD, and it's not a change?
That's not a change. The setbacks that are noted are within the requirements of ordinance 463.
So that was already preset?
Yes.
The applicant, want to address the council?
Thank you. Obviously, understanding the earlier concerns and comments, we'll go ahead and obviously look to table this as well. But I would ask if there's any other questions outside of the drainage concerns that we can address tonight as well. I'd be happy to hear those. Rashad did walk through the project. It is a continuation from Phase 3 regarding the trail. We don't have a wetlands area in this section for the trail itself. We are complying with all of the ordinance requirements. We're not asking for any variances on anything. And we are coming in under the maximum lot count that is provided for the ordinance as well. So at this time, if there's any other questions regards.
Do you have the presentation similar to what you did with?
I do.
I want to see the
Yeah, let me-
density with regards to this.
Yeah, I can walk you through that chart. We did the same for phase 4. So, as you can see in front of you, the chart there, the left-hand column are the current ordinance requirements, maximum of 235 units. We will be coming in with 232 total units. This does include the 69 units currently built, previously built in Phase 4A. The maximum density that we cannot exceed is 1.43. We did have an error in our calculation. Apples to apples from an acreage standpoint, we're in at 1.41, which makes sense. We're 3 units under, so they'd be relatively close.
wanted to see
The
it.
lot matrix, pardon me?
That's why I wanted to see it.
Yeah, we noticed that. So, as you can see, the lot matrix, what we have done with this section, with the fewer lots, we're actually shifting the balance from the smaller lot size to more of a blend and a higher balance to the larger lot size within this phased area. So, at the end, the average lot size is going up fairly significantly from the original concept plan in this area. We are providing and meeting the intent of streets paralleling Duck Creek for an open corridor. You can see in this kind of blow up, we have this large section of roads here. We have a cul-de-sac that provides great exposure, another large section of streetway, and then some more cul-de-sacs that provide more of that public view down into the Duck Creek corridor. Open space requirements, again, it's a minimum of 43.46 acres. We will be far exceeding that, and also there's been a portion previously provided with Phase 4A. The lake with the dock, that is already been provided with Phase 4A and 3A. That's this area right here. So that has been provided. We have trails, and there's one of the gazebos that will be added to that trail area that's going to go in here. And the gazebo issue, the bike trails, the hike trails we spoke to. And then per the PD, we need to establish a fence along 3B's portion of Nance Road here on the southern boundary of Phase 4B and 4C. So we'll be providing that. There's some graphics and detail in your package that show how that will comply. It did come up in our homeowners association meetings that we had with the Phase 4 homeowners. The prior developer did not put this fence in along here, similar to the one that we'll be providing. Right now, it's a lot of trees along that edge and then more of a barbed wire type fence. So we're using our resources to assist the HOA in looking at what it would take to go ahead and build a fence, if not exactly like, but similar to the fence we'll be building on 4C. So we're going to work with the 4A HOA members and see what we can do to help them in trying to establish some type of a stronger fence line along there for them. I think that sums up the key components of the PD requirements and how we're going to obtain all of those with no variances.
Does this effectively do away with 4D?
It does, right. Yeah, there was just another phase for 4D, and we're going to just roll that into 4C.
It won't be coming back and trying to build a 4D.
The acreage is all the same from 4B, C, and D, the way it was previously noted, so it's just the same acreage.
I like hearing the part about trying to improve the fence all the way down for the rest of Nance Road. Maybe that's a good alternative to my question about the lack of being able to put enough trail in to meet the requirements. So maybe that's a good trade-off. Probably not the same cost, but might be a good trade-off to take care of that 3,000 plus feet of trail that we don't get. I think there's going to be some discussion about Nance Road. As you're providing emergency access, we're going to need to figure out how to improve Nance Road. I think that's going to become something we have to negotiate. Even though it's a requirement perhaps in 5, we may have to look at it in 4. Is that a fair assumption as we put that in there?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wade, I again, thank you again. Indulge me, please. The Nance Road requirement, the Nance Road is obviously a concern because now we're taking, Nance Road was improved to this point to service really one resident at the end there, and now we're saying, we're proposing that we put an emergency, I realize it's an emergency entrance, but now we're serving, what, 200, potentially 200 lots on unapproved part. In the town, to this point, in case you didn't know, we are, I think,
But at this point,
know where is it to that?
because there's Houndsville.
Yeah, so we're proposing to improve it, probably to right in here, I think, in that right, somebody from staff talked to me, you missed that,
Yes,
missed that trail, that rail line,
yes.
somewhere right in here, right? So we've got about 2,000, I went and measured, it's about 2,000 feet from that point to your proposed emergency entrance, and here's the base of my concern, is that we hope we never have to use it, obviously, as an emergency, but we need to make sure it's improved to the point to where a heavy fire truck or something like that can maneuver that street and also can maneuver that entrance. And so I have 2 concerns. One is the rest of Nance, the 2,000 feet of Nance, and how that entrance will look, and how will be, what kind of foundation are we talking about that we'll look at. On top of those concerns is, obviously you've stubbed it out, because at one time there was a proposal to have a road come into that area. We don't know what that developer, because you don't own that land, obviously, we don't know what that person's going to do. And so, in looking a little down the road, potentially, how are we going to address this entrance, this emergency exit that could be, or entrance that could be, at some point, a full use entrance? Because I give you have 2 ways back there, right? But they're both a significant distance. And if I'm a resident in that very back part of 4C and I have an emergency, that doesn't seem like a very good route to use, to have to go all the way through the neighborhood to get to that back part. And so I'm curious about your thoughts. I know you probably don't want to discuss this or want to do it, but if you look at the overall plan, I think we have to, as a council, we have to look at and see, is this the safest and best thing for our residents to have this road in such a manner?
So you're correct, Councilmember Finch, that we do have 2 points of access. This will be the second point that we will be crossing, we talked about earlier, that we will be completing. The existing access is here coming in. And from an emergency standpoint, again, that is the reason for this access here, to be emergency vehicles only, to make for a quicker access point into this portion of the property. As far as the construction of this access point, we fully intend and have it designed from a width standpoint to handle the fire trucks and their minimum required turning radiuses to get in and out of that area. That's all going to be part of the construction design phase that we go through, but we did allow for the sizing of the right-of-way necessary to handle that in the concept phase and in the preliminary plat, so we did pay attention to that.
And any comments on Nance?
Well, again, in reading the ordinance, it is to be determined with Phase 5, because I know there was a plan showing potentially another road paralleling Nance that may or may not be needed, or if Nance then would be vacated. Not sure the intent, again, back in the history of this and what the town council would want to see happening there. We would, certainly feel the obligation to make sure that road, working with Public Works and the fire chief, make sure that road is compatible for the fire equipment and the emergency equipment. By all means, we would certainly stand up for that.
I appreciate that, and it's the unknown for us as well, because you see our point in that we have to rely on another developer to come in, but we're going to have an issue if you develop back there probably sooner than that is ever done. And so trying to look at the compromise between what you're trying to do and accommodate that, and I do appreciate your density levels. I appreciate your plan. I really do. But in looking at these few items, those are my concerns, especially when it comes to public safety. We never want to compromise on the safety of our citizens and of our fire personnel that have to travel a road. And so I guess you've kind of answered my question, but I'm looking for some comments from you as a developer coming in, creating this. How are we going to better serve those residents and those
Certainly.
people back in that area?
Certainly. So, by all means, again, we will work with Public Works and the fire department on improving that road to ensure that it is, at the standards that it needs to be from a safety access for the equipment, for the type of equipment, the size of equipment, the weight of all that equipment, so that there's, long-term maintenance of that is taken care of. We are, again, providing the 2 points of access necessary. We felt that these access points provide access back to Stony Creek Boulevard that then give 2 access points over to Collins Road as opposed to, the single off of Nance Road. We also met with the new town, is it the Public Works? Johnny? Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah, with Johnny, and we had some discussions about Nance and the interchange, the intersection at Collins Road and the concerns about that. Again, that's, something that he mentioned that he doesn't like that intersection at all, and we felt that the safer avenues are with the extension of Stony Creek Boulevard over to Collins Road. We've got, a much wider access point there to handle, and with the current access point on Stony Creek already built, lighted interchange, trying to keep the traffic in those areas, we felt was a safer situation. Again, with the emergency access down this way, not trying to bring excessive public traffic down Nance.
I don't disagree with you, and I appreciate that. Again, I'm just thinking an emergency situation, if I'm back at that very back lot in 4C, the thought of our fire department having to transverse a whole neighborhood to get back there, again, the point is not to, I don't want to belabor the point.
I guess I want to make certain that that's the access point off of Nance Road is for that particular access. There's an access point right here that we are proposing.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm only talking from that point back to, really, it's
Back
not
to
point
here.
Back to probably right in here. We're going to improve the right in here. We've got
Right.
about 2,000 feet of roadway that is not going to be improved.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We would make sure that that road meets the public works of the town and the fire department's standards for what that road would need to be for their fire and emergency equipment. We would take care of that section.
And understanding that it's not that way now.
If that's the case, then certainly I understand.
So
I'm
make
making
sure-
that commitment. What it needs to go to, we will make that
I'm going to
commitment.
make sure not a discussion that, well, if it's
Yep,
paved,
yep.
it's somewhat paved, that it's.
No,
In our
you know,
opinion, it's
state
not
it clear
way
that it
now.
needs to meet the fire
Okay.
department and the public works standards, whether that's there today or not.
I appreciate your.
Certainly so.
Thank you.
Sorry for that, not being clear on that.
So I have a question for you. In fairness to the dozens of people that probably did not show up at your HOA, developer/HOA meeting, we received more than a handful of comments today and over the last weekend from residents back in this area concerned about, let's be fair, the density is a reduction of 3 houses from the number, right? From 235 to 232. I just want to be sure we're clear about that.
Certainly, yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Second thing is, there's some concern about only being able to exit through the gate and not out Nance Road. So my question is, why are we making that at Nance Road, emergency exit only and not an entrance exit point? And I think their concern is real in that we're forcing another 200 homes through one gated in and out.
So I'm sorry if I'm not being clear. We will have, first of all, we held 2 meetings for the HOA and the residents. We also put our contact information and put the site plan and discussion on the website for the HOA as well. So I appreciate that. I know not everyone's able to make meetings at certain times. We did reach out to Rashad to see if there were other homeowner concerns that have come in since that time and since our posting. We did get, I think, 2 emails from Rashad from 2 residents that we were aware of. I didn't know there were more, so I apologize. We weren't able to address those. But to address your comments, Councilman Allen, there are, again, this Phase 4 is the gated area, and that area will remain gated area. That was very important to those residents of 4A, and that this maintained a gated entry scenario. So we will have, at this new entrance, that will be a gate located there. That'll be a gated entrance for these residents only. And then there's the second, or currently existing gate entrance right here. So there are those 2 points of access, and again, as I was mentioning with Councilmember Finch, we feel that those access points then onto Stony Creek, go back to this map, that gate is, the second new gate will be there, the current gated entrance is here, that those getting onto Stony Creek Boulevard provide a better and safer access over onto Collins Road. As that loops to the north, that will loop to the north for a new entrance onto Stony Creek with better visibility at that entrance. And then the existing entrance that is currently at a lighted intersection down here. They can go that way, and then they can also exit out to the north up to the northern to-be-constructed entrance.
So could you walk me through, please, in 4C, I think what is labeled 4C, in the far section, if you would, just walk me how the residents in this area get out of the neighborhood. What's the quickest point exit for those?
So they would go up this avenue, and they can exit this way to the existing, which would, be the most direct access for them. Again, staying in a gated community, the nature of a gated community, and how those are typically
So
done.
is this 4B up here at the top? Is
This-
it in the gated area?
Where my pointer is right here, this is 4B, that will be behind a gate, and this is currently 4A that's existing, that is gated
4B
right
at the
now.
top here, right there.
There?
Is that part of the gated community?
It is, yes. Yeah,
So-
that will be part of the gated area. There's a
So
roadway that,
If 3B comes down, do they have to go through a gate?
3B does not, but there will be a gate where this purple little bubble is. That'll be your second gate into the full gated community there.
Okay, but It
And-
looks like 3B has a street that comes down there into the purple area.
Well, there is, let's see if I go back, maybe this one here is a little cleaner. So there is this roadway here that will then be an extension into this part of the development.
So 3B is going to have to go through the gate?
No. 3B can access, will come off of Stony Creek Boulevard here, there's no gate. They will come in and access their homes here. The Phase 4 residents will continue on to this gate here to then access into the gated neighborhood. So the gate is after the 3B section.
So that begs the question, is there a,
So they're going to dead end into the gate. If 3B is going to come down and dead end into that gate?
Well, yes. I guess if you would say it's a dead end for these residents, but they wouldn't need to go that far. They would, be entering into their homes here.
It looks like it's a dead end into that gate for 3B. I mean, there's got to be a turnaround there, whether you're a resident or you're shopping for a house.
Certainly so. It's similar
That
to,
needs to be doesn't that need to be a
yeah, we
cul-de-sac
would,
or something?
we'd be able to have, similar to this gated entrance here, where if you get to the gate and you don't have a code or you're made a wrong turn, right turn here, you can see that little opening there that you can just do a little U-turn and go on out. So, yeah, we would propose something similar over here.
So I think it goes back to the original question that I tried to ask amongst the other stuff, is that why did you not put a gated entrance at Nance for public residents to come in and out that versus just an emergency exit? Seems like it would be a much safer and better flow of traffic for those residents in 4C, particularly all those residents in 4C and maybe some cases 4B to be able to come out that backside versus all funneling down the same roads.
Well, again, we felt that having the access or the traffic patterns onto Stony Creek Boulevard and then on over to Collins Road was a better situation. The openness of those intersections onto Collins Road and the visibility on those we felt was better. If you look at the situation down on Nance Road, it's pretty tough with visibility and the constrictions there.
Well, I think it's true, but the town's already made a commitment to improve that section right there at Nance Road. So once that's improved, that eliminates the visibility concerns, and I agree that is real. We've talked about that amongst ourselves, even with the school. But once that's resolved, and it seems more logical for those residents in 4C to come out the backside, it's a quicker access out. Also gives them access to the school through that backside and eliminates the traffic up and down Collins Road. It gives another point entry to Collins versus everybody being forced to go one direction to Collins, which is already a mess.
I'm sorry, one direction on Collins?
Wherever, all those residents coming out toward Collins Road, it just seems like it's a better access for residents to our school. More importantly, some of the comments were, why didn't we make that an access and not we? Why didn't you make that an access, and public entry access, a gated access to the community versus just an emergency road access?
Yeah, again, we felt that the access up the other way was a better situation in that regard. Traffic studies and whatnot.
It was somewhat designed to be self-contained for this development, Track 3 and Track 4. That other portion that would be the additional stub out would be, as I can, Rachel, you think you can pull up that one PDF that I had put in that special, that shows the original concept plan? I think that'll help kind of answer some of the intent for that stub out and what it was supposed to do. Yeah. It's under the presentation folder. Yes. At one point, of course, Track 4 was 4B, 4C, 4D, and then 6A at the bottom there. But that stub out was intended to tie into the 5D portion and then abandon, the ordinance states abandon that portion in between Nance or just abandon Nance altogether. So I think the extra point of access that they provided was to address the 2 points of access requirement and then deal with the future extension at a later date when Track 5 is developed. But I understand the issue at hand as far as right now, they still have a lot of homes that would need to traverse through Track 4 to get to those 2 points of access.
I think Rashad started to speak to this. Again, the nature of that Phase 4 is a gated community, and it's that, in a sense, the self-containment, if I can, of what a gated community would feel like. So we were trying to adhere to that intent as well. But honestly, it's also, feeling that the access onto Stony Creek in both directions back to Collins was a great proposal.
Can you put the prior slide back up? One before that. So the access to 4B here can be here. Right there. There's the gate.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of that gate down there? Is that so that people can come through 3 and get to 4?
I'm sorry, which gate? The
gate.
the northern gate?
Is that so people can come to 3 and get into 4? Or was that just your second entrance?
That's our second entrance, but as you recall, we're providing access on Stony Creek to go north as well. That Stony Creek Boulevard will continue north and wrap around to Collins. So we were providing a northern access point, people coming,
Do that this way.
and they can come this way to there.
They can. I'm not sure that that makes a whole lot of sense to me because all we're doing is making traffic from 4 go through 3, or allowing them to do that. But they get to that point, and it's a dead end for them. these people have access to this right here. Seems like it'd be more reasonable to put the second access point back on Nance Road and serve that side of the development. Because all we're doing with that gate is letting them access 3. They can access Stony Creek down at the bottom.
Certainly so. Again, we're also extending Stony Creek north and
Understand.
giving them a further north
I don't-
access point. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not sure I like the dead end there of 3B. You put that in and you put a box culvert there so you can create that entrance. We can do away with the box culvert, just make it a significant dead end, or maybe you don't even need that street past that last house. That second entrance might be better on Nance Road.
Question, during your HOA meetings, did you get a lot of residents to attend, and did, at least that lived in 4, and did they, from the gated community, and did you discuss this with them? Like, did you get feedback from the residents that live there?
We did, yeah, thank you. We held 2 meetings on the evening of the September 10th, and the first meeting was for Phase 4A residents only, because, we did feel the uniqueness of the project impacted them a little bit differently than, say, homeowners on the west side of Stony Creek, or Collins Road. So we did hold with them, and we had a good turnout. Trying to recollect if it's in the notes, Rashad, we had at least 20 to 30 residents there for that meeting. And typical types of comments there. There were some things concerning the existing project and timing of things there. They did enjoy that we were still maintaining the intent and the continuity of their gated community. And there truthfully wasn't a lot of discussion regarding preference to come out on Nance or to have the secondary accesses we have it shown and proposed. The residents of 4A didn't have strong opinions one way or another on that.
The minutes from those meetings that we have in our packet, were those written by your firm or were those written by the HOA?
Those were written by the HOA manager, I believe. Is that right, Colin?
Those notes from the meeting were written by whom?
Yeah, the HOA manager, the third-party company that we had 2 attendees there, and they were taking notes, and I believe they drafted those.
So they drafted those.
Yes, sir.
And was it brought up, plans for the security gates? I think they're supposed to be manned right now, but I don't think there's a person actually there. So, when you were discussing the the gated community, was that concern?
That
from
topic wasn't
residents
brought
that-
up, no.
That they didn't, okay, do you know what I'm talking about, though?
I do, yeah. The gate on the current entry does have a little bit of a shed there for a manned situation. We acquired this project in February of this year, and I haven't heard that that's been a desire, a concern, or, again, kind of impartial, anything regarding that. We did hold 2 other homeowner meetings when we acquired the property, and have met with them, again, now with these 2 meetings, 3 or 4 times, and I don't recall that being mentioned or brought up. The HOA management company, the third-party group, hasn't mentioned that to me as well as a concern.
Okay, thank you.
On Rockshire Road, received several emails from residents concerning their belief that there was supposed to be a green belt behind their homes. And they sent some plats, it may have been 2015 or 2007. We tried to sort out what they sent exactly. But it looks like what you did is you took the land and pushed it back toward their homes, eliminating what they believed was going to be a open area or some sort of a green belt between their development and whatever the next one is there. I guess that's 4B.
Yeah, so we did have one of those emails forwarded to us by Rashad, and this is the area here, these homes that front Rockshire, they were concerned with one resident we're aware of, that there was at one point a conceptual plan that showed a green belt along here, and then the road, I believe, That plan, as I understand, was denied by the council, and the current plan that is approved, I'm not sure, I don't think I have that in my presentation, is similar to what we have proposed here. So we haven't deviated from the existing approved concept plan in that area.
I think we lost Rashad. Okay. I'd like to see what the 2007, I think, is the plan. I'd like to see what that looks like. I'm not sure that we have that. Maybe Rashad can speak to us on that.
Yeah, I don't have that in my presentation.
You have Exhibit D.
Rashad, reference the residents on Rockshire that were concerned about the concept plan versus the real plan. What is the
The current concept
current
plan,
approved plan? I know it sounds like we had, that maybe that residents had a conflict of understanding what the concept plan was. And now we have a different plan. So I'm trying to figure out what's exactly in place approved by the city now.
the current approved plan is what's being shown right now on the screen. At the time, Four Star Real Estate Developers were the owners of the property, and that was what was approved. In 2016, they came in and proposed an amendment that showed an open space area along the Rockshire area, behind the homes of that are along Rockshire. That wasn't shown in the original concept plan based on the way it appears now. That concept plan that was proposed, that amendment in 2016 was denied. So that property owner, in the noticing process, the review by P&Z and council, received that, and I don't know if he attended the meetings or not, but I believe he assumed that that plan was approved and was set in stone, but it wasn't. So that was the plan that was emailed to staff, and it did show an open space behind there, but that plan was not approved. Based on this plan, I can't specifically see, but it doesn't look like there's an open space behind there, behind those lots.
Other questions from council? If not, we'll open a public hearing for comments with regards to this application, phases 4B, 4C, track 4.
I would just say again, back to the scenario for phases 3, I would support again the tabling, so
Understand.
make my statement.
Anyone want to comment? Not. Any more comments from the council? Not, we'll entertain a motion already agreed to by the applicant to continue the public hearing and table this to the October 22nd meeting.
I'll make a motion to table this to the October 22nd meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Finch to table this agenda item to the October 22nd meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as stated, so signify. That's all of us. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is also the preliminary plat, applicant Colin Helfrich, 400 Nance Road, 168.4 acres northeast of Nance Road. Preliminary plat approval for Stony Creek Track 4, Phases 4B and 4C. We'll treat this as the same way we did with Track 3. We will open the public hearing for anybody who wants to make comments. If not, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing and to table this item until the October 22nd meeting.
So moved.
Councilmember Neal made a motion, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Finch, to table this agenda item until the October 22nd meeting and also to continue the public hearing. Motion made, seconded. All those in favor so signify. That's all of us. Thank you, Colin. We didn't get to hear from you tonight. Mr. Campbell, thank you. Great presentation. We look forward to seeing you back on the 22nd, but we also encourage you to stay very active with our town staff to resolve some of these issues and to come back with some hopeful solutions that allow us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 11 on our agenda. The applicant is the town of Sunnyvale to discuss and consider the first reading of ordinance 18-24, an ordinance amending Lake Edge development regulations, an ordinance amending the Town Unified Development Ordinance, ordinance 17-09, duly passed by the Town Council on March 26, 2018, as amended from time to time so as to review and amend section 3.06.10 Lake Edge regulations, as well as any other associated sections. Turn this over to Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, Council. In 2017, the town entered into an interlocal agreement with the City of Dallas in order to govern and regulate construction within Sunnyvale along the take line area of Lake Ray Hubbard. Prior to drafting the Unified Development Ordinance and establishment of the lease agreement policy with the City of Dallas, the town did not provide any Lake Edge regulations with regard to development of piers, decks, etc. During the drafting of the UDO, the town put in place regulations that would regulate potential development along the lake, but these proposed regulations were kind of a placeholder in a sense. The City of Dallas has come in and noted that some of our regulations aren't in line with their requirements, and this is something they have done with Heath, Rockwall, Rowlett, and in order for them to review and us to review and be on the same page, many of these changes were proposed by them, and we're just going through the process to get that in line. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this and recommend approval with staff comments.
Okay, questions by the council? Let me ask you a couple here. We didn't notify any property owners. Was that, I read your comment, but there are numerous property owners, several property owners along the lake that this applies to. I know it's a text amendment, but was there, why was they not notified?
Not in this specific situation, no, sir. I didn't provide notice, just like you noted, it was a text amendment, and many of the changes weren't something that I felt like were harming those property owners. This is something that is in line with what would be asked of by the City of Dallas in any way during the review of any construction development. I think the more specific regulations that we're working on is the actual lease agreement process that we will need to provide advance notice.
There was one, I know this is part of the UDO already, but in 3.06.10 C 1 A 3, it's at the top of the second page. It says a boathouse shall incorporate a boat lift. Shall means it will. Do we have to put Is there a requirement that a boathouse has to have a boat lift?
That
Maybe
is,
a boathouse without a boat lift?
I'm trying to get to that section,
Okay,
but again, this is, much of the wording in here is specifically asked for by the city of Dallas, and only thing I could think of is they need to make certain if you're gonna have a boathouse, that that boat drain because of mussels. I'm not a,
yeah, just,
Yeah.
so that, you know, when we allow them to build a boathouse, but now we gotta tell them if they build one, you gotta have
if there was not gonna be a boat from a staff viewpoint, I wouldn't ask that they build a boat lift, but if and when they have a boat out there, we would go out there and verify that a boat lift is constructed.
there's some specific requirements in here with regards to how long a boat can be docked.
Yes.
Who's checking those things?
I'm assuming the city of Dallas, because I know we can't necessarily verify that because we don't really have access to the other side there unless we get a boat.
Yeah, I mean,
Staff wants a boat?
I'll go out there and do that.
And Mayor Pro Tem, their specific concern on the length of time a boat was docked had more to do with houseboats or people living on boats and keeping them docked for long
so, but
periods of time.
this only means that all you have to do is move your boat for 30 minutes and you start another clock. Is that right?
Fair enough, but
All right, I just wondered. You can leave it docked for 6.5 days, as long as you move it in the next 30 minutes. Just want to make sure we didn't bite that check-in off, because there's two places in there where that applies. So I think the crux of most of this was just the fact that we're going to start the construction permit process instead of the city of Dallas.
Correct. We'll be starting it, they'll still be part of the review, but we'll be starting the process.
We have to start it now, so.
Yes.
And this is in place as soon as we adopt these regulations?
This will be the first reading.
Yeah, but I mean, as soon as we do that, then somebody can actually make a construction permit?
We're still finalizing the the lease agreement process, but yes, I don't foresee
Okay.
that process holding up someone if they're really wanting to do something.
Other questions by council?
Yes, on, I believe is under dimensional standards, architectural standards, A. Would you read that sentence to see if that's spelled correctly?
Which word?
Wrapped. Lakeside gazebo pilings shall be completely wrapped.
It's like the song rap.
Must be in a different place than I am.
Number 5.
Pass it to Rashad, you can see it. You see it already, Rashad?
No, not yet.
It's lakeside, it's a gazebo, that's wrap.
That's original, that's not me, that's original.
We believe it.
Hey, I'll be honest, I just looked down and saw it right here. What do you think I've set on to bring out today? I just looked down and saw that.
There's a few typos throughout the UDO that we need to address, so.
Okay.
And so we'll address these things where it says a reference source not found. We'll fill all those in.
That was, whenever we copied and pasted, the link lost this, lost the link, so,
Okay.
yes.
So this is the first reading. Anything else that staff needs to review?
Is this the first reading?
Is that it? So there's no action necessary. We will review this again on the second reading on October 22nd. Next item on the agenda is applicant is Town of Sunnyvale to discuss and consider first reading of ordinance 18-25, an ordinance amending the Town Unified Development Ordinance, ordinance 17-09, duly passed by the Town Council on March 26, 2018, as amended from time to time so as to review and amend Section 3.07 zoning procedures, specifically Section 3.07.02.c, as well as any other associated sections. Rashad.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, in the recently adopted Unified Development Ordinance, the town included an additional public notice requirement for proposed zone change requests. Public hearing notice signage is required to be placed at the proposed site prior to the 10th day before the public hearing. The specific requirement in the ordinance states that the size of the sign shall be 6 feet tall from grade. I'll note that that is not the typical industry standard for such signage, and staff has proposed an amendment to address that issue. It should be a smaller size as far as a stake sign, and staff has proposed 3 options with this amendment. We can lower that square footage to 6 square feet, use a stake style sign, a minimum 3 feet tall, and town staff would post this signage. An administrative fee would be charged to the applicant to cover the cost of the posting of the public signage, and a fee would be charged for each sign used, with a maximum of 5 signs to be used based on the acreage. Standard public notice signage language would be created for public hearings and zone changes. This will be a similar size sign as you've seen with the construction signs that we created, so those would be specific to Sunnyvale and have a similar look. Option 2 would be to allow the applicant to post a sign. I'm more in favor, and the P&Z was more in favor of option 1.
Thank you, Rashad. I'm also in favor of option 1, the way we control what it is standard throughout the town. Other questions for Rashad? If not, this is a public hearing. So at this time, I open the public hearing to those who might want to speak with regards to this posting of a sign with regards to a zoning change. No one coming forward. I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, this is going to, excuse me, it's first reading. We don't need a motion.
Mayor, I would like to say I would go for amendment option 1, though, for the time, such time that we do move forward with this.
Okay, okay, good. I think that you can proceed with the option 1.
Okay.
Let me apologize, I did not have a public hearing with regards to the Lake Edge development. So let me open that public hearing real quick. If anybody has a comment, we would certainly entertain your thoughts with regards to the Lake Edge. If not, I'll close that public hearing, and we've already moved that agenda item to the next meeting. Finally, the last public hearing. Thank you for your indulgence tonight. Applicant is Town of Sunnyvale. Discuss and consider the first reading of ordinance 18-26, an ordinance amending heavy assembly, manufacturing conditional development standards, an ordinance amending the Town Unified Development Ordinance, ordinance 17-09, duly passed by the Town Council on March 26, 2018, as amended from time to time so as to amend section 3.04.04, conditional development standards, as well as other associated sections to add conditional standards for heavy assembly and manufacturing uses. Rashad.
Pro Tem Council, Town Council recently approved an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance to allow for heavy assembly and manufacturing land uses within industrial zone areas. With this amendment, development regulations were requested to be added to provide conditions for such development near residential areas. Town staff has prepared an amendment to section 3.04.04 conditional development standards, which would provide additional guidance and development standards for heavy manufacturing uses. The proposed amendment primarily addresses concerns with any detrimental heavy industrial development near residential zone property. The Commission, Town Council, and Sunnyvale residents noted their concerns with regard to possible heavy manufacturing industrial uses near residentially zoned areas. Specifically, the proposed amendment would prohibit any use that would be considered noxious, otherwise objectionable, explosive, hazards, noise, vibration, smoke, things of that nature, from being within 1,000 feet of any residentially zoned property. So they would not be permitted. And they would provide staff, prior to even receiving the application, the ability to determine whether or not we felt that the use would be objectionable. If we had some pushback, it would still provide P&Z and council, if the applicant still want to proceed with this regulation, to provide some teeth in regards to if they still found that that proposed use would be objectionable. I will note that this land use classification still requires a specific use designation in any case, and would be subject to any other requirements as far as screening, buffering, as such. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the proposed amendment as presented.
Rashad, how do we decide on the 1,000 feet?
I had noted some other communities, and I had a town planner, Eric Del Angel, do some research, and this seemed to be, for our specific situation, the best distance and best solution. The two properties in question, it pretty much addressed and prohibited that type of use from those areas that were of concern.
So these two pictures that you provided, where exactly are those?
The one on the left in the staff memo, that is along Larkin.
That is what?
Along Larkin.
Larkin.
The one on the right is the northern portion of Clay.
So the red is the areas that are within 1,000 feet of residential area.
Yes. Right. That's the key.
So how much of this red area is industrially zoned?
All of this is industrially zoned.
So did we leave any area that's buildable?
Well, you'll still be able to develop industrial. It just won't be a heavy manufacturing use that would be considered noxious or objectionable. You can still have a heavy manufacturing use that's enclosed. I mean, we have those in town now. I will note this morning, I don't know if I'm really, this isn't finalized, but Dallas Water Utilities, I had a meeting with them this morning discussing the improvements along Larkin and Long Creek, that area, their fencing, the guard shack, and I understand that they are in discussions to purchase the Vulcan property. That was straight from them. So that property may be off the books anyway.
Good. Any other comments from the council? Questions?
I think this does good. Our residents were concerned. We've addressed it. I think the 1,000 feet's a good term. Still requires a special use designation, so we still have say. So I think in everything we did, it protects our residents. And so thank you, Rashad, for the work staff did on this, and appreciate you taking care of this timely, because that's, was one of the things we were concerned about a little bit. So thank you again for doing that.
Councilman Nye? This is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing with regards to this agenda item. Seeing no one come forward, close the public hearing. Any further comments from the council? This is the first reading, so no action necessary. So we will see that again on our October 22nd meeting. And that concludes the public hearings. I don't have that as a public hearing. I know, he's been sitting there, but he's not listed as a public hearing.
Oh, it's not public? Okay. Well, we get to listen.
All right, the next item on our agenda is an application from Michael Twitchell, at or about 370 Barnesbridge Road, a minor plat for the Twitchell addition. And first of all, council, any questions for Rashad? Rashad, tell us what's going on.
As noted, this is a minor plat for property located at 370 Barnesbridge Road. The applicant is proposing to plat a 2-acre lot along the Barnesbridge roadway, west of the Lion Cemetery and northeast of his existing home. The lot will have direct access to Barnesbridge and access to the pond in the rear. The applicant has verified the above water area of the pond using the maximum water level of the pond is greater than 1 acre, approximately 1.3 acres, in order to meet the size requirements for the on-site wastewater treatment. All of the details of the proposal meet town standards.
Council, any questions for Rashad? Being none. Mr. Twitchell, you want to come and tell us what you're doing? Thank you for your patience in sitting through this so long. Be thankful you're not in a public hearing.
Thank you. I'm Mike Twitchell at 370 Barnesbridge Road. What I'm planning on doing is building a house for my daughter Lauren, who went to Sunnyvale schools. She's the head of catering for Wolfgang Puck, and she's got 2 little girls, 7 and 5, and a husband. And out of the blue, about 6 months ago, decided she was going to live next door to me, and she said, "You're building me a house." You all have daughters, that's what's happening. So I'm an architect. I own an architecture company and a construction company, so I'm designing the house, and we'll go in for permit tomorrow, hopefully. And then we'll start building as fast as possible, because they're living with me right now. So I bless you if you will pass this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's
Appreciate it.
fine. All right. Council, any questions for Mr. Twitchell? Rashad? If not, motion to approve, deny, or table?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Egan, seconded by Councilmember Finch to approve the item as presented, this being a minor plat for the Twitchell addition. Any questions? Not. All those in favor of the motion as stated, so signify, and that's all of us. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Get that permit tomorrow, and I bet you'll be building by the weekend. All right, council, moving forward. Ms. Tracy has an item for us tonight. Discuss and consider Resolution 18-19, authorizing an expenditure of the Sunnyvale 4B Development Corporation for the purpose of purchasing the installation of new pole lighting at Vineyard Park in an amount of $64,378.
Good evening, Mayor Pro
Good
Tem and
evening.
Council. So this item was brought before the board last year. It was my second, I was only here a month at the time that it came before, so that the August 8, 2017 4B Economic Development Corporation board meeting, they approved for lighting to be put at Vineyard Park in the amount of $64,378. At that point in time, at the end of August of 2017, it was brought before council, but at that point in the UDO, we weren't able to put the lighting on the fields because of the standards and setbacks and everything at the UDO during that time. As we were going through the changes of the UDO, it was determined that the setback for a light on a non-residential, I think it's park lighting, let me see here, setbacks for lights on play fields, it was determined that it would be 1.5 times that of the height of the pole. And our maximum height pole right now is 30 feet. As we finished the UDO got approved in April. We never brought it back because at that point in time we were kind of looking and talking about sports complex, so we we're kind of seeing where that went before we even decided to put the funding into the Vineyard Park lighting. Since we're not real sure what's going to happen with that, if it'll even happen, and now with the news about the Vulcan property, We really wanted to reach out and talk about the Vineyard Park lighting again. We've had a couple of Sarissa parents and people that are associated with Sarissa reach out and ask if we were going to put the lights out at Vineyard Park. So it went back before the board this past month, and the board again approved for the lighting to be put at Vineyard Park for $64,378. So now it's brought before council to officially ask if it is okay if we spend the money to put the lights in. I know there's been a couple of questions, so I'll address those. One of the questions was in the actual Clark Electric bid. It talked about this is not intended to meet any sports field standard or guideline. What has been told by Clark Electric is that it would be sufficient use for a practice field, but it's not sufficient lighting for any type of games. I know that a couple of you have asked, and I have. So that kind of gives you a diagram of the luminance. It's hard to really see in the matter of all this, but where you see the red dots, that's actually where the poles are going to be positioned. Then there's a little area around it. However, and talking a little bit further with Clark Electric, they said that 6 poles should be sufficient for this area for practice fields. We also were looking and determining that the way that I found a slide that had the outline of the way the soccer fields are put out, and there's 2 soccer fields currently that are put out there. But if you look at what the standard soccer field is and the dimensions, we could probably put more fields out there, which then could rearrange the lighting. So we're looking at different diagrams probably for the lighting to be able to hit the inside of the field to where you only see 1 lumens as opposed to the 16, 17 lumens right around the poles. So I'm going to continue to work on that with Burton and see what his ideas and thoughts are on the playfield, and then work with Clark Electric on the position of the lights. But I still wanted to go ahead and bring it before you and see if we could go ahead, if it was sufficient, if we could approve it, and then we would still work within those means to rearrange the field lighting.
Tracy, my question would be initially, it does look like we're lighting the perimeter and not lighting the entire field. I noticed, and it looks like in my quick looking at this, the field is longer than it is wide.
Correct. It's 350 feet by 300.
Okay, so on the long side, you've only got 1 pole. So what would it, what if we increase the bid, but you had 2 poles on each side?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't really increase the inside a whole lot, but you've got a long stretch of 1 and 2s, almost the entire length of the field.
Yes, sir.
Because there is nothing really in the center.
Mm-hmm. And I think the whole idea of where the lights are set right now, it's just that it's exactly 45-foot setback. So it's actually going to be pushed in a lot further than what it's showing on this diagram.
But it can't be pushed in such that they're sitting in the middle of the field.
Correct. But, it could probably go another 20 feet before it would actually hit the field. So that'll help with, and I think the reason that there was only 1 pole on that side was because it was hitting the residential side, so trying to limit what was back on that side. And that's sitting in between the 2 fields, the ones on the
Sides.
Yes. So the idea was to have the 2 so that it lit up the actual field itself.
Was there any significance to the fact that part of this is a pale yellow and part of it is a green?
No,
Is it supposed to
no, sir.
designate anything?
Mm-mm.
Other comments from the council?
I think my only, you addressed my concern. My concern was that we had enough lights to be safe, and so as long as we're being told that this is enough to be safe for our kids, then I think it's a good plan. I wouldn't be opposed to doing a little more if we had to make it.
What would 2 more lights cost?
Yeah, it wouldn't cost that much.
I mean, is that $20,000 more dollars? Just taking 6 is 64,
Possibly.
might be a little less because wiring is already there.
Volume discount?
I just think you know, 4B, obviously it's their funds too, so if they see the need for it, I don't think you'd get any objection from us to make it safe, to make sure it's a suitable playing surface.
Make sure, if we're going to do this, let's do it the
do it
best
right.
we can.
Sure.
Let's do it right.
I agree with that.
And at the time we were looking at this, I mean, we were told that this was sufficient and would do what we need for it being a practice field.
1 lumen's not a lot, but
Right.
it may
Mark,
be.
you're the expert on this lighting stuff. What would you recommend?
I'm comfortable with what with the LED pattern. I guess I've got a different question, which I'm going to ask in a second, but I would prefer that we go to 8 poles and make an arrangement of something of that nature, and it would improve the lighting safety, I think, and the light, not so much the safety of it as it is just the kids being able to see. So I think going to 8 poles wouldn't be a problem. The one question I have is, a little bit of a concern is, it appears we got a second bid for this at $353,000.
Yes, sir, but that was also for a 70-foot tall.
Well, and I can understand the difference in height of the poles. The question is it just that difference in the height of the poles and the difference between $353,000 and $65,000? And I'm going like, this guy's doing it pretty darn cheap. Clark Electric's doing it pretty darn cheap. If I had a third number in there to at least give me an idea if I was, is Clark Electric going to do this and go, uh-oh, or was NEMA 3 Electric trying to take us to the bank?
And Robert did try to find other quotes, but unfortunately wasn't
Wasn't
able to get
it
any.
done. I mean, I think that going with 8 does it, and if Clark can do it, I'd like to see the LEDs set out there because they're going to have some longevity to them over HID.
So
And
NEMA didn't want it.
So could we structure this motion in such a way that we approve the item here, but we give 4B the flexibility to extend this to 8 poles, keeping it within reasonable cost of this?
can we just give them a number not to exceed? Take,
She says we have to approve the agenda. We can't adjust them. Can you hold this to October 22nd? We bring it back and you get a cost factor?
I can do that, yes. And anything above this amount, I'll have to just repost it and wait the 60 days for the additional funding.
I think
Let's approve this.
let's approve this, and if they want to come back to us, they decide they want to come back to us, and let them come back to us. You can tell them we're,
And I can, like I said, Clark and and Burton are gonna work and figure out a strategy.
Slow it
So
down.
we can
I
always
don't
bring
slow
the
it
additional
down, but-
funding back.
I think if they decide they want to bring it back to us, they have to go through it all again anyway, right?
Yeah.
They can start over.
I just like for them to have what they need, the best we
I
can
agree.
provide, and we're only talking 20 or 30,000 more dollars. Maybe not even that. We understand what we want to see, but we can't approve tonight.
Sure, yes, sir.
Okay, so, motion?
I have a couple questions real
Yes,
quick.
sir, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Is this the same company that did the wiring for other things in our town?
Yes, sir.
So,
Now, I believe so. It is my understanding Clark has done a lot of work.
did we use them for the water tower?
No.
That I don't know.
I think that was another bid.
Okay. Okay, that, I
But
think
Larry,
it's-
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. I want to be sure that the photometrics meet what their diagram is saying here. I want that commitment.
Now, I believe they've done the tennis courts, the lighting for the tennis courts.
But did they use LEDs or did they use HIDs or sodium vapor or anything like that?
No idea.
LED's a different, while it's still light, it's a different technology.
Right, and that's why we approved the LED lights instead of the HID.
Well, but the different technology is in its ability to light, as demonstrated by looking at the water tower. Because I was led to believe that the logo was going to be fully lit, and as it turns out, it can't be fully lit, and that's LED. If it had been any other older technology, then our logo wouldn't look like it had a shadow going through the middle of it.
Well, and they said that Clark was not the one who did the water tower.
Right,
so-
but regardless of who does it from now on, everybody else from now on, regardless of who it is going to have to make up for the previous person's sins. So I want to be sure that the profile, that they meet the profile, that they can prove that they're meeting the profile that they give to us. If, once our kids get out there, they start missing the soccer ball because they can't see it, then I want them to come out and prove to us, I want that in the contract in whatever way, that they prove to us that they meet the lighting pattern that they said they were going to give us.
Okay.
One more question, and I hate to drag this out.
Drag it out.
Key operated switch, is this going to be, how are you going to turn it on, how are you going to turn it off? And do they look at the possibility of doing Wi-Fi so it can be controlled in case someone leaves that on late at night? I guess that's a couple questions, because I've seen sport lights in towns, particularly Mesquite, because someone didn't have the key to turn it off or on, and they couldn't get it off. So
Sure,
is
and we've
Wi-Fi an
talked to
option,
them.
and how's this going to work?
We've talked to them about changing that option out to one like the tennis courts, where it's a timer and shuts off at a certain time. So they said they would be willing to do that.
The superintendent has also volunteered to be the superintendent of schools has volunteered to be our light watcher. I hear he's pretty good
But
at that.
it's kind of like my pool equipment. If you have it on Wi-Fi, you can just turn it off from your home if you get a phone call. So I was just thinking Wi-Fi, if that makes it easier for everybody. I don't know. I was just asking the question. I think it's worthy to ask that question in today's day.
It's not a timer, it'll shut off at a certain time, so we don't.
Okay. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Finch, seconded by Councilmember Allen to approve agenda item number 15, the purchase and installation of pole lighting at Vineyard Park. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify, and that's all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy.
Council, we've done good tonight. We're getting through. All right, that brings us to the mayor and council request for future staff updates and agenda items. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask the staff?
Rashad or Leslie or Charles, do we have an update on Mesquite's progress on the south side of town along the railroad tracks on Cyan, well, I don't know, however you say it?
Not at this time, no. I've driven past there, and it looks like they have provided access to the Ashley site, so I believe a majority of Cyan from Clay to the Ashley site is constructed.
Anything else?
I had a couple, but I'm going to narrow it down to one.
Okay.
So I have a question. The minimum tree size for new trees in residential, is that 3 inches?
That's what's noted in the UDO.
So I'd like to ask this, because I've noticed there's a lot of new homes that are being built in our neighborhood, and I actually started watching these trees, and they're getting smaller and smaller. And many of them are less than 3 inches, so I'm not sure where that responsibility for viewing that is. It doesn't seem like it's much, but that's 5 to 7 years growth. So could y'all follow up on that and find out who's responsible for checking that out and actually checking those trees? Because I checked some today that were 2 inches in diameter. And I think it falls far below what our minimum standard for the town is.
And I'll verify that that's still noted in the UDO. I know that was something that was in the older ordinance. Our building official, when they finalized this to CO,
pursuant to Chapter 551, Subchapter D of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.087, Economic Development, and Section 551.074, Personnel Matters, Town Manager, for an executive session at 9:40 p.m. At least about 10 minutes.
What is on the, what's this?
I know what I did.
You did good. No, I really did. And Barbara didn't know it was Brenda, she came through, and didn't know what was Brenda for. Is that gonna bother me?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna see some lights. I don't think it's lighting.
I can hear them playing on every accident.
It's not gonna be more.
It doesn't bother me.
30 foot tall.
My daughter, Curtis.
Well, they sent a letter of support.
Oh, they did? Maybe they won't.
They supported it. We got that.
Any of them around there? Well, like the water tower is so far. The water tower is so deep where I guess could be worse than this. Oh, it sounds like it's letting up, y'all. Sounds like it's letting up.
All right, now go fight the rain.
Well, it's, well, there's a big chunk coming right behind it. Here, show right, the radar. Well, this is yellow that's been happening, and red's fixing to hit.
Oh, my goodness.
So y'all might as well just take it.
We might as well stay in executive session.
Y'all still have food? You can have a midnight
Exactly, we
snack.
might have a snack.
Have a midnight snack.
We're gonna go see, yeah, you go. We're gonna go see all our floods so we can take pictures of shells.
No, and that's the truth. You can leave Brian, he'll take the bus.
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah. Big Chris's truck.
Oh my gosh, I was scared to ride now.
Oh, there's Ebro. Not even Ebro triggered.
There are some bad examples.
If we hear a pause in the rain, we're gonna take off.
All right, y'all be careful.
That's what I heard. Debbie saw it. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a real good idea. That's what I had to hello. I wrote a book on your roundabout. Oh, I told you. Well, there's like 7. Now, I agree with that. 100%, right? I agree with that. No, I just told you we were gonna have okay. Make sure we're crossing the crosswalk. No, he don't want to be hero. He just gonna melt it. No, he gonna. Why he even sing the song? What song? I need a hero. Well. Okay. Well, he should be singing that song to you. See you Thursday, I guess. I'm gonna go get me out of my house so I can carry my bags. Amen to that. What are you eating? You might as well just sit down. You can't make leftover lasagna. All night for you. I'll tell you one thing. We need to pray because you need to stay. I know what that is. No, they're not. We need you back. Is he home? Might have eaten them all. Unless they took them back and ate them all this time. And you know that? Oh, the garden breadsticks. Okay, are you okay? You sure? Oh, it is. Oh, where are you? Oh, you're on your right. How come? And what was Kennedy about? Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. Bye-bye. We have a storage that we use back here in the garden club stuff. She said it's locked.
Yeah, that's locked.
It sounds like it's slacked up. Not enough. My hair's got wet. Oh, I found one for you, Barbara. Here, make it smell good and all.
Oh, wow.
God's good.
I think it might have slacked up.
It is, it's slacked up just a little bit. I don't want my hair wet.
Take that, put over your head.
Oh, no, get one.
I
Just
had
put
some
it
yesterday coming out of Walmart. But
Oh, I did
don't
too.
mind getting wet, I'm going home. I don't want my
Oh, I do, I just got my hair.
Well, I brought nothing.
Just got your hair done? I think I'm looking.
I brought nothing.
You know I'm full of it.
I think you're funny. Although I did see you in a flip phone, really?
Oh, yes. I don't even want that. I'm not done, I just don't want it.
And
I didn't
she
say you were
knows
done.
everybody's phone number.
And I do
Does
know
not-
everybody's.
Well, no,
It really helps you to do it this way. And today, I was with my father on earth and the two people in there, three, and me, and all they were doing was touching on their phone. That's all they did. They didn't talk, nothing. Sure, you want to see this picture? You want to see this picture? You want to see? I said, hell no, I don't want to see a picture.
I think it's gotten to the point, I mean, people are just,
It's just,
we used to all go out together, like 10 of us.
You
Everybody in there. Barbara didn't do it,
Well, the
she
hell has
didn't do it, I didn't do it. Everybody else is sitting there while we're eating on their phone.
and I thought, you know what, if they don't care anymore about it.
I think I put my shoes in here too. I think I don't take my shoes off. I put my shoes
Get a
in there.
place or something out there.
No, I won't take my shoes. It's in there. Well, it's probably a lake out there. There's probably so much water out there rolling into it. Well, I don't have to, these are short. I mean, I don't know
I
where,
always have on shoes that can hit.
amen, I don't know where they're from. See? Some rednecks
pants
in
are
Sunnyvale.
Well, I hope you don't get a hold of an ant or something.
A man won't get you out in that water, but now
Hey,
they
listen.
step on something. Listen, my house.
Down in the
Yeah,
green.
my house, gonna get you is the acorns. I go down Bell Park.
That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. That's what's happened.
Now we. Oh, did you ask her for what you wanted?
I would like to have a picture of the owl around the town. But I know it's not gonna do any good.
Oh, I think she said she wanted.
No, no, I want the version. Do you have, the one that, can you pull Facebook up on your computer? His computer's dead.
But what I thought was the originals where we had two,
Yeah.
and then we had one up here,
Well, now-
and then we had one down here.
Ryan just said, he said, I have really been working on this, because I know,
Working on what?
on the roundhouse. He said, because it's already started, and there's not much we can do. And he said, I've talked to a lot of people, and the construction of ours is the safest and the best and the easiest. And he said, let me give you another.
Most people told that. What are they gonna say? Y'all's is the most dangerous? Now, this one.
Oh, sorry, no, this is something. I moved it.
Where's Tracy? Is she still right there?
Is it over?
Is Tracy still right there?
Yeah, but she's not here. He saw you.
Y'all ladies have a good night. Yeah, and you be careful back there.
I will. That's why I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think it's kind of stopped.
It's not.
Well, I'm not. You know what, and I do like her, and she is a good person. I know, much better person than I thought. I'm not talking about her at all. When you talk me into it, I follow her. She's right. She's always ends up being right. And it's a losing battle. And we waste time. And this, we may never walk again. Yes, it is. And we also need to be more, when we can't communicate a solution. It's like it is now. Because what nobody can do, one is, now I told her, I said, I really appreciate what you did. I told her, I said, I really appreciate what you did. He said, I was hoping that you would say that, because I really care about the citizens of Nashville, I really do. I said, I really kind of think. So, this is no time to talk about it, but anyway, you know, well, we're just gonna say like, oh no, I'm not gonna say that, this is a secret. Oh, I don't tell anybody. Well, we may be. They respect us for who we are and what we've done. So we really never tell them what we're gonna do. But you love to put one. And I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. If Jim Foster's running here, yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Jim Foster's running here, yes. You did not trust me. No, there's something wrong.
Leslie, you okay? Yeah, I'm tired. Oh, okay. At least you're not. I'm gonna go see if it, look, I could see those headlights.
Okay.
If I was going to give it a run.
Charles looked good tonight. I think maybe if something happens.
come out of executive session at 10:03.